in 1984? Stay tuned to find out. You won't believe it. Good afternoon, a mighty welcome to Today's a Day on February the 17th. And before we start, as ever, a sneak preview just for you folks at home of some of the classic clips coming up in today's show.
They're mating zebras that closely resemble the quokka. The plan is to re-establish the quokka's identity and return it to special reserves.
A new idea in plane design from America completely does away with normal wings. Instead, it has short stubs which are used only for landing and takeoff. The plane relies on its flat, square-shaped fuselage.
How about if I serenade you with my ukulele?
My wife, Liz.
I have heard. The piano. Oh, good Lord, sir. I think I found out where that deserter went.
Some splendid clips there to test the memories of two new teams. Let's meet them. First, we welcome Mick Harvey and his friend Ian Scales, who are both retired civil servants, and they're from Worthing in West Sussex. And it's a programme to delight Sir Humphreys everywhere, because taking them on, we have Paul Froggatt, who's also a civil servant, and his friend Ian Otley, who is a police civilian. They're both from Swinton in South Yorkshire. And, of course, they're playing for that magnificent prize, a pair of round-the-world air tickets, coming up just before Easter. And to get onto the leaderboard, today's winners will have to score at least 156 points. And we kick off with our TV round, a selection of classic programmes which were on the air on this very day in years gone by. Let's do three clips for Mick and Ian first, and see just what you make of these.
You mustn't call me a dear girl. Well, Fanny will be jealous and say it's my fault.
Jealous?
If you had heard how she has spoken of you.
How was that, Miss Price?
Hushfield, I forbid you to say another word. She has told me about how you look at her.
How I look?
Tilda, you neglecting John most dreadfully.
Aye.
Going out of my head over you, out of my head over you, out of my head, day and night, night and day.
Said she had come into possession of some of great-great-grandpa Meldrew's personal effects, and would I be interested? Now, bear in mind, this item is over 150 years old, and it's very delicate. And I think you'll find it rather fascinating.
What is it?
It's his scarf. I have to say, when I first laid eyes on it, I couldn't believe the family resemblance.
Mick and Ian, can you identify those? First one?
I think it might have been the Forsyte Saga.
No, it was Nicholas Nickleby from 1968. Second
Was The Bachelors.
yes, The Bachelor Show from 1975. And the third,
One Foot in the Grave.
of course, starring Richard Wilson and Annette Crosbie from 1992. Your point scoring coming up. Who starred as Nicholas Nickleby in that adaptation?
Peter Adamson.
No, it was Martyn Jarvis. Martyn Jarvis later played Uriah Heep in a BBC adaptation of which other Charles Dickens novel?
No.
It was David Copperfield. Originally known as the Harmony Chords, the Bachelors were formed in which city?
Belfast?
No, Dublin, wrong one. In 1964, the Bachelors reached #2 in the pop charts with which song, originally a chart topper for Frankie Lane in the 50s and for Robson and Jerome in the 90s?
Unchained Melody.
No, it was I Believe. In which 1987 comedy drama series did Richard Wilson play the manager of the rock and roll band The Majestics?
Got a clue.
I'm sorry.
Rock Follies?
No, it was Tutti Frutti. And in the 1970 drama series The Six Wives of Henry VIII, Annette Crosbie played the king's first wife. Who was she?
That was Catherine of Aragon.
It was, yes, and by Jove. Saved from a humiliating 0 by that last answer. And we've 3 clips coming up now to test the memories of Paul and Ian.
Now then, Ruthless, I would like you to call Fred Yoo-hoo, just like that, and see if it comes over and eats you.
Well, Peter's going to look after you if he doesn't.
Peter? Is that Peter? Hey, you've got to know him well, haven't you?
Yes.
Did you yoo-hoo to Fred?
Yes, I just did it.
Oh.
Come on, Williams. Come on. Come on. Not yet, not yet. Get her up. Come on, Williams. What are you doing?
No, stop it! Stop it!
Have the up here, speed.
I must have time to think.
Yes, sir. How about if I serenade you with my ukulele?
My wife, please.
I have heard. The piano. Oh, good Lord, sir. I think I found out where that deserter went. Lady Fairfax. He's very capable of playing many musical instruments. Really? Well, sit down and play.
I have a piccolo.
Well, stand up and play. It's all the same to me.
Paul and Ian, can you identify those first one?
Jim will fix it.
Almost there. It was Clunk Click with Jimmy Savile from 1974 in pre-Jim Will Fix It days. Second?
Bergerac.
Correct, starring John Nettles from 1983. And the third, of course?
Morecambe or Wise.
Right, from 1973. Your point scoring coming up. Who were the top of the pops dancers you saw braving Jimmy Savile's snappy guest?
Pants people.
Correct. Played by Don Johnson, which television detective had a pet alligator called Elvis?
Sonny Crockett.
Yes, in Miami Vice. John Nettles was born in which county, home to another television detective, Charles Wycliffe?
Cornwall.
Correct. Bergerac solved crimes on Jersey. What is Jersey's capital?
St Helier.
Is right. In their 1977 Christmas show, Morecambe and Wise joined Barry Norman, Richard Baker and other presenters to perform which number from South Pacific?
There ain't nothing like a dame. Was there ain't nothing like a dame, I think.
Correct, and there's a fleeting glimpse of that in our title sequence. Eric Morecambe was a famous supporter of Luton Town Football Club. In his shows with Ernie, he often shouted the name of which other team?
Arsenal.
In unison and correct. So, at the end of that round, we find Mick and Ian on 5 points. Paul and Ian, a mighty 30. On to our Stop the Clip round. Fingers on buzzers, please. Buzz when you think you know the answer to the question. And we kick off with a report from today in 1984. What's the story? Start the clip.
Crisps have come a long way since the little blue salt bag, but manufacturers will have a prickly task.
Mick and Ian.
I think it's a crisp company putting packets of salt back in the bags again.
No, restart the clip.
Eat a new flavour dreamed up by a Welsh landlord. The feature is in milk.
Paul and Ian.
Hedgehog.
What about it?
Hedgehog flavour crisps.
Exactly that. A story from today in 1984 about the introduction of a totally new taste in crisp cuisine, hedgehog flavour. The inventor supposedly got the idea after numerous requests from gypsy customers who wanted to recreate the taste of hedgehog cooked in a clay oven. What a revolting thought. Next, a story from today in 1997. Who is the subject of this discussion? Start the clip.
One of her earliest scientific studies was on how toadstools germinate, which she submitted to the Linnean Society in London, because women were not allowed to be...
Paul and Ian?
Is it Madame Curie?
No, restart the clip.
members, her paper was presented by a man. Unhappy with its reception, she withdrew the text within weeks.
It is a matter for great regret that somebody who clearly had some original contribution to make was effectively turned.
Paul and Ian?
I didn't do it.
No, sorry. No, restart the clip.
She was a talented naturalist who didn't shy away from boiling rabbits and squirrels or dissecting other animals.
Paul and Ian?
Is it Beatrix Potter?
It is, yes. A report today in 1997 about Beatrix Potter, because though she's famous today for her children's books, she was first and foremost a naturalist as well as being an accomplished artist. Now, some music from the charts today in 1984. Can you name the singer and the song? I need both for a correct answer. Start the clip. Paul and Ian?
It's Madonna and Holiday.
Well done, yes. It got to number 6 in the charts in 1984. Let's have another burst.
We need a holiday. We do
So at the end of that, Mick and Ian are taking a little bit of a holiday from answering questions, aren't you? Sitting there on 5 points still, while Paul and Ian are zooming ahead with 52. So let's see if Mick and Ian can start motoring as we move into round 3, famous faces. On the video wall we have 4 years, hiding behind each year a well-known person in a classic clip from the Today's the Day archive. Mick and Ian, off you go.
73, please.
1973.
I think it goes back to the fact that if you won an Oscar in the old days, let us say, your salary immediately jumped enormously, and of course that cannot happen now. It's unrealistic. So the money thing doesn't come into it. But there is this odd thing that you don't get offered work because of an Oscar.
Yeah. What
I don't know why.
What do you do with a statuette? Do you put it on the sideboard at home or something?
Mine is actually holding a door open.
Maggie Smith today in 1973, discussing how winning an Oscar affected her career. Name one of the 2 films for which she received an Academy Award.
Prime of Miss Jean Brodie.
Correct, the other being California Suite. Paul and Ian, your choice of year.
1992, please.
1992.
I started in acting 20 years ago, and I didn't get into it thinking, well, I want to get an award. I got into it because I was fascinated with the literature, theater literature, you know, plays. I thought these are marvelous stories about the human condition, human life, and that's why I got into it.
Nick Nolte today in 1992 talking about why he started acting. He received an Oscar nomination for his performance in which film, directed by Barbara Streisand?
Changing Faces.
No, offer it to Mick and Ian.
Cape Fear.
No, it was The Prince of Tides. And Mick and Ian, your choice.
76, please.
1976.
I can honestly tell you that when my name first began to be prominent in the newspapers, I was very surprised. When I actually got the news, I confess I was rather shattered. But in a curious way, I now find myself at peace.
Basil Hume today in 1976 describing his reactions to being made an archbishop. He's a member of which monastic order?
No. Cistercian?
No, offer it to Paul and Ian.
Franciscan?
No, Benedictine. And Paul and Ian, you're left with 1984.
Well, I think there's an aspect of performance in jazz which is much stronger than in any other kind of music. You're actually playing what you want to do yourself instead of living up to a great composer's ideals. And you can actually, say, project your own soul to the audience. And you can learn from other people so quickly in the jazz world.
Nigel Kennedy on the advantages of jazz today in 1984. He recently announced that he wanted to be known by what name?
Kennedy.
Correct. So the end of that round, Mick and Ian on 10 points. Paul and Ian still strongly ahead with 57. Now fingers back on buzzers, please. 5 points for every question. It's time for our quick fire round. Born today in 1963, which basketball player starred with Bugs Bunny? Paul and Ian.
Michael Jordan.
Yes, he starred with him in the film Space Jam. With which basketball team has Michael Jordan won the NBA championships? Paul and Ian.
Chicago.
Yes, the Chicago Bulls. They've won it 5 times. Which Indian chief who died today in Paul and Ian.
Geronimo.
Well interrupted, yes. He died today in 1909, and his name means one who yawns. Geronimo was the leader of which Indian tribe? Paul and Ian.
The Apache.
Correct. Born today in 1942, Huey Newton co-founded which American Black Revolutionary Party? Paul and Ian.
The Black Panthers.
Correct. In the 1968 Olympics, athletes Tommy Smith... Mick and Ian?
I'm sorry. Gave the black salute.
Well, you're right, but that's not the answer I'm looking for. I'll give the full question to Paul and Ian. In the 1968 Olympics, athletes Tommy Smith and John Carlos made a Black Power protest on the Victory Rostrum. For which running event were they receiving medals?
The 400 metres.
No, 200 metres. Today in 1962, Alison Hargreaves was born. She was the first woman to scale Everest without which piece of equipment? Paul and Ian?
Oxygen?
Yes, oxygen tanks. What nationality was the first woman to climb Everest? Paul and Ian?
New Zealander.
No. Offer it to Mick and Ian.
Australian.
No. Japanese. Junko Tabe in 1975. Today in 1970, Anna Anderson lost the final stage of a long legal battle. Paul and Ian?
Anastasia.
Well interrupted. I was going to say, having claimed she was which Russian imperial princess, it was indeed Anastasia. In 1956, which actress won an Oscar for her performance in the title role of the film Anastasia? It was Ingrid Bergman. Born today in 1934, who is the man behind Sir Les Patterson? Mick and Ian?
Barry Humphries.
Yes, the man behind Sir Les Patterson, the Australian cultural attaché. Barry Humphries as Dame Edna Everage. I'll finish the question. Barry Humphries as Dame Edna Everage recently provided the narration on a recording of which piece of work by Prokofiev? Paul and Ian?
Peter and the Wolf.
Is correct. So, at the end of that round, Mick and Ian on 15, Paul and Ian 97. After which we'll take a short break here in the studio to give you folks at home a chance to win a pair of Round the World Air tickets. See what you make of this.
It was a mixture of lots of things. In the game and out of the game. I wasn't enjoying playing as much as I had done. I wasn't as fit as I should have been because of my own fault. It was my own fault.
George Best explaining why he gave up playing football today in 1973. He made 349 league appearances for which team? Was it A, Leeds United, B, Newcastle United, or C, Manchester United? If you know the answer, ring 0891 339900. One winner, selected at random from the right answers, can choose an electronic personal organiser or a colour television. 10 runners-up win a newspaper published on the day they were born. They all get a chance to compete for our grand prize, a pair of round-the-world air tickets. That's 0891 339900, and the lines stay open until midnight. And there's a reminder of today's question on CFAX, page 575. And the answer to yesterday's question, James Mason's co-star in the film A Star Is Born, was Judy Garland.
And we'll let you have that question and the phone number once again, as usual, right at the end of the programme. On now to our video wall. There are 8 clips here, some more difficult to answer questions about than others, so you do have a choice, and as you can see, the clips are worth 5, 10 or 15 points. Mick and Ian, your choice.
Bottom left, please.
Bottom left for 15 points.
Mansell's McLaren machine, launched today in London's Science Museum, somehow extends the frontiers and yet conforms to the sports complex regulations. Controversy focuses on the central wing, a feature on the very limit of the rules.
You know, you look at it from the front and you think flip, and then you look at it from the side and it's even more impressive. So, and I won't tell you what the back looks like. Hopefully a lot of people will be watching that.
A new motor for Mansell and McLaren today in 1995. For 15 points, Mansell won a Formula One race for the first time at which circuit?
Brands Hatch.
Correct, the 1985 European Grand Prix to be precise. Paul and Ian, your choice.
Bottom right, please.
Bottom right for 15 points.
What else do you do with a 10-ton altar fashioned by the foremost British sculptor of the age, except put it in a church? Even if conservationists have condemned it as looking like a giant camembert cheese. The altar is said to be worth £750,000. When restoration works complete, the church will be rededicated with the altar taking centre stage.
A new look for an old church today in 1987. For 15 points, who sculpted that altar?
Henry Moore.
Correct, Mick and Ian.
Middle bottom. Yeah, middle bottom, please.
Bottom middle for 10 points.
It's been called the 8th wonder of the world, one of the greatest achievements of Victorian engineering. The 4th bridge remains a vital rail link from Edinburgh to the north, but critics complain that the old bridge is being allowed to rust to save money. Railtrack insist that's not the case. They say it's not their business to make the bridge look good. The 4th bridge is a tourist attraction and a symbol of Scotland, but its appearance has never looked so scruffy.
Blistering bridge today in 1995. For 10 points, which Victorian designer of decorative wallpaper, textile and carpets described the bridge when it was opened as the supremest specimen of ugliness?
Wilton?
No, offer it to Paul and Ian.
Is it Axminster?
No, it was William Morris. And Paul and Ian, your choice.
Middle right, please.
Middle right for 10 points.
Zebras that hold the key to bringing back to life the quagga that once roamed the deserts of southern Africa until it was exterminated by hunters over 100 years ago. Now, scientists are close to reproducing an animal that was once as dead as a dodo. They're mating zebras that closely resemble the quagga. The plan is to re-establish the quagga's identity and return it to special reserves, this time protected from the hunter.
Breeding zebras for ancestral characteristics today in 1992. For 10 points, how many species of zebra are there?
3.
3 is right. I won't ask you what they are, because that was a bit of a guess, wasn't it?
Indeed.
Well, I'll tell you, they were Burchell's zebra, Grevy's zebra, and the mountain zebra. I bet you're glad you didn't have to deliver that as an answer. Mick and Ian, your choice.
Top middle, please.
Top middle for 10 points.
They're as French as the Eiffel Tower and as much a part of Paris as the Louvre or the Arc de Triomphe, and they're about to disappear. Modesty is to become the order of the day. From the outside, the new Sonnisette, as they're officially described, may lack the distinctive charm, if that's the right word, of the old urinals. But inside, for 1 franc, a little less than 20p, the Frenchman or woman gets not only the essential equipment, but a little piped music.
Bidding adieu to the Parisian pissoir today in 1981. For 10 points, what was the standard cost of using a public lavatory in Britain from their introduction in the 1850s until decimalisation?
1 old penny?
Yes, hence the expression to spend a penny. Paul and Ian, your choice.
Middle left, please.
Middle left for 10 points.
The Super Boot, officially Combat Boot Mark II. Army kit, in the Army's words, suffers maximum clothing abuse. But this boot should be balm to the feet of the infantrymen of the 90s. Water and oil-proof, light and comfortable.
The boot I've got on now comes with a new insert, which coupled together prevent all the problems that were incurred in the Falklands War and in previous conflicts.
Introducing the Super Boot today in 1988. During the Falklands campaign, the Royal Marines called trekking over difficult terrain yomping. For 10 points, what name is given to it by the Parachute Regiment?
Trekking.
No, offer it to Mick and Ian.
Stomping.
No, it's called tabbing. Tabbing. And Mick and Ian, your choice.
Top right, please.
Top right for 5 points.
A new idea in plane design from America completely does away with normal wings. Instead, it has short stubs which are used only for landing and takeoff. The plane relies on its flat, square-shaped fuselage. Inventor Bill Horton, who calls his plane the Horton Wingless, says the vertical fins on the edge of the fuselage give added lift. Horton claims that bigger models of his wingless wonder could be developed to carry 4,000 passengers at a time.
A wingless wonder today in 1954. For 5 points, what name is given to the hinged flap on the trailing edge of an aircraft wing, which provides control of sideways movement?
Aileron?
Aileron is right. And Paul and Ian, you're left with top left for 5 points.
When physicist Chris Romanek arrives at the science convention, he bears a gift from another world. These are pieces from a Martian meteorite NASA believes contains fossilized microorganisms. Rival scientists dismiss NASA's evidence as flimsy.
I find it highly improbable that nature is just going to knock a piece of rock off the surface of Mars and deliver it to us, containing the information that we're just prepared to spend several $1 billion to go and look for.
Martian meteorite dust today in 1997. For 5 points, in Roman mythology, Mars is the god of what?
War.
God of war is right. And no change in the gap between the two teams in that round. Mick and Ian ending up with 45. Paul and Ian still strongly ahead with 127. Takes us to our final round. Time to beat the clock. 60 seconds of questions about the 17th of February, but only one team member can play. And to get onto our leaderboard, today's winners will have to score at least 156 points. Paul, you're in the hot seat. Let's go. 60 seconds starting now. Born today in 1934, which actor starred in the films Whistle Down the Wind and A Kind of Loving?
Alan Bates.
Correct. Today in 1949, Dr. Chaim Weizmann was sworn in as the first president of which country?
No idea.
Israel. Today in 1971, the film Catch-22 was in cinemas. It starred which singer?
Art Garfunkel.
Correct. Born today in 1953, Pertti Karpponen won 3 Olympic gold medals in which event?
Shot put.
No rowing. Today in 1982, Lee Strasberg died. He was a renowned teacher of what type of acting?
The method acting school.
Correct. On TV today in 1973, whose catchphrase is, "What's up, Doc?"
Bugs Bunny.
Correct. Born today in 1781, René Laennec invented which instrument used to listen to the lungs and heart?
The stethoscope.
Correct. Today in 1976, Hugh Casson was made president of which institution?
The National Opera.
No. Royal Academy of Arts. On the London stage today in 1982, which Peter Shaffer play featured the life of Mozart?
Amadeus.
Correct. Today in 1986, the Queen arrived in Kathmandu, the capital of which country?
Nepal.
Correct. I just started, so I'll finish. Today in 1966, which singer was in the pop charts with "These Boots Are Made for Walking"?
Nancy Sinatra.
Is right. And Mick, we won't mention the target you've got to beat, but shall we have a go anyway? Let's go. 60 seconds starting now. Born today in 1945, Brenda Fricker won an Oscar for her role in which film?
Coal Miner's Daughter.
No, My Left Foot. Today in 1982, Thelonious Monk died. He's most associated with what type of music?
Jazz pianist.
Correct. Today in 1977, the film Marathon Man was in cinemas. Who played the evil dentist Zell?
Laurence Olivier.
Correct. Born today in 1877, which French statesman gave his name to a line of elaborate fortifications against Germany?
Maginot.
Correct. Today in 1934, Albert I died. He was king of which country?
Belgium.
Correct. On TV today in 1964, the drama Swallows and Amazons was based on whose book?
Arthur Ransom.
Correct. Today in 1970, which boxer became world heavyweight champion for the first time when he beat Jimmy Ellis?
Muhammad Ali.
No, Joe Frazier. Today in 1980, artist Graham Sutherland died. He painted a controversial portrait of which Prime Minister?
Winston Churchill.
Correct. Today in 1969, the Canterbury Tales was on the London stage. Who wrote the original stories?
Geoffrey Chaucer.
Correct. Today in 1958, which pressure group was founded with Bertrand Russell as its first president?
CND.
Correct. Today in 1904, the opera Madame Butterfly was premiered... I'll finish the question. Today in 1904, the opera Madame Butterfly was premiered in which Italian city?
Milan.
Is right. Well, a sensational performance, Mick. You and Ian have ended up with 135 points because you were a little bit slow in the earlier part of our contest. Paul and Ian have played a blinder throughout, have achieved the magnificent score of 207. So, Paul and Ian, not only are you our victors today, but you go on to our leaderboard in joint top place, which is a fantastic achievement, and it means you will almost certainly be here again for our quarter-final starting just before Easter. And you also take home today's the day trophies and newspapers printed and published on the very days that you were born. That's it for today, a cracking contest. We're back tomorrow at 5:30 here on BBC Two with 2 new teams who we hope will do just as well. Hope you can make a date and join me then. Bye for now.
And a reminder of the Today's the Day phone question. George Best was explaining why he gave up playing football today in 1973. He made 349 league appearances for which team? Was it A, Leeds United, B, Newcastle United, or C, Manchester United? Call 0891 339900 and the lines are open till midnight.